My boyfriend expected me to cook, clean, and pay half the bills, smirking. A good woman knows her place. When I refused, he scoffed, "You'll never find a man who'll treat you better than me." Months later, he saw me on a yacht with my new fiancé. His jaw dropped as I raised a glass and smirked. "You were right. I found someone who treats me much better." I never thought I'd be the one sharing a story like this, but here we are. I hope my experience can serve as a lesson for others who might find themselves in similar situations. A few years ago, I was living in Chicago, working as a marketing coordinator for a mid-sized firm. Life was busy but fulfilling. One evening, at a friend's birthday party, I met Daniel. He was charming, witty, and had this magnetic confidence that drew people in. We hit it off immediately, exchanging numbers by the end of the night. Our first few dates were like something out of a romantic movie. Daniel took me to some of Chicago's hidden gems, a cozy jazz club in the South Loop, a family-owned Italian restaurant in Little Italy, and walks along the lakefront, sharing stories about our lives and dreams. He worked as a mechanical engineer, and his passion for his work was evident. I was captivated by his intelligence and the way he made me feel special. As months passed, our relationship deepened. Daniel was attentive, often surprising me with little gifts or planning spontaneous weekend trips to nearby cities like Milwaukee or Indianapolis. He had a way of making the mundane feel exciting, turning grocery shopping into a fun adventure or cooking dinner together into a romantic evening. His gestures made me feel cherished, and I began to envision a future with him. After about a year of dating, Daniel suggested we move in together. He had a spacious apartment in Lincoln Park, close to both our workplaces. It seemed like the logical next step in our relationship. I was thrilled at the idea of waking up next to him every day, sharing our lives more intimately. We spent weekends shopping for furniture, picking out decor, and merging our belongings to create a space that felt like home for both of us. However, once we started living together, subtle changes began to emerge. Daniel had always expressed somewhat traditional views, but I hadn't realized the extent of them. He believed that as a woman, it was my duty to manage the household, cooking, cleaning, and ensuring everything was in order. This was despite the fact that we both had demanding full-time jobs. At first, I thought he was joking when he made comments like, "A good woman knows her place." But it became clear he wasn't. He expected me to have dinner ready when he got home, keep the apartment spotless, and handle all the domestic responsibilities. When I brought up the idea of sharing these duties, he dismissed it, saying, "You'll never find a man who'll treat you better than me." I tried to reason with him, explaining that a partnership should be about equality and mutual respect. I suggested creating a chore chart or alternating cooking duties. Daniel scoffed at the idea, insisting that his job was more stressful and that he needed to relax when he got home. He argued that since I was better at cooking and cleaning, it made sense for me to handle those tasks. I felt undervalued and unappreciated, but I loved him and hoped he would eventually see my perspective. As time went on, the situation worsened. Daniel's expectations became more demanding. He would leave his clothes strewn about, expecting me to pick them up. Dishes piled up in the sink because he refused to wash them, claiming it was my responsibility. If dinner wasn't ready when he got home, he would become irritable, sometimes giving me the silent treatment for the rest of the evening. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, constantly trying to appease him to avoid conflict. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, I came home exhausted. I suggested we order takeout since I didn't have the energy to cook. Daniel exploded, calling me lazy and ungrateful. He berated me for not fulfilling my duties and accused me of not caring about him. I was stunned and hurt. That night, I lay awake, reflecting on our relationship and realizing that this dynamic was not sustainable. I decided to have an open and honest conversation with Daniel. I expressed how his expectations were affecting me and how I felt like I was losing myself in the relationship. I emphasized the need for mutual respect and shared responsibilities. Daniel dismissed my feelings, reiterating that this was how relationships worked and that I needed to accept it. He even had the audacity to say, "You'll never find a man who'll treat you better than me." That was the breaking point. I realized that no matter how much I loved Daniel, I couldn't continue in a relationship where I was not valued as an equal partner. I made the difficult decision to move out. With the support of friends and family, I found my own apartment and began the process of healing and rediscovering myself. In the months that followed, I focused on my career, hobbies, and spending time with loved ones. I took up painting, something I had always been passionate about but had neglected during my time with Daniel. I traveled to places I'd always wanted to visit, like New Orleans and San Francisco, relishing the freedom to make my own choices without judgment. During this period of self-discovery, I attended a networking event for work. There, I met Lucas, a successful entrepreneur who was kind, respectful, and, most importantly, viewed me as an equal. We started dating, and our relationship was everything I had hoped for. Lucas appreciated my independence, encouraged my passions, and we shared responsibilities naturally. It was a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. Fast forward to last summer, Lucas invited me on a trip to Miami. He had chartered a yacht for the weekend, and it felt like a dream. As we lounged on the deck, sipping champagne and enjoying the ocean breeze, I felt a sense of peace and happiness that I hadn't experienced in a long time. As the yacht docked at the marina, I noticed a familiar figure on the pier. It was Daniel. Our eyes met, and his jaw actually dropped. I didn't move. Just sat there with my glass of champagne raised slightly in his direction. He stared like he was trying to make sense of what he was seeing. It was one of those weird, slow-motion moments where time stretches. Lucas turned to me and asked if I was okay. I just nodded, but I could feel something bubbling up inside me. Not nerves. Not fear. It was something close to satisfaction. Cold, clean, and long overdue. Daniel didn't come over right away. He stood frozen for a bit before finally walking down the dock. I could see him hesitating with each step, almost like he was hoping I'd disappear if he looked away. Lucas hadn't recognized him yet. Why would he? When Daniel finally got close, he didn't speak right away. Just stood there, eyes bouncing from me to Lucas to the yacht. He looked ridiculous. T-shirt too tight, probably to show off what was left of his gym gains, designer sunglasses resting on top of his head like a bad Instagram influencer. But his confidence was gone. That smug look I used to hate, wiped clean off. I didn't know you were back in town, he said eventually. I didn't look at him. I didn't know him that. Didn't realize I ever left, I replied calmly, eyes still on the horizon. Lucas turned, confused. You two know each other? Daniel jumped in too quickly. Yeah, we used to date. Lucas just gave him a polite nod and turned back to me. Want another drink? Sure, I said, smiling up at him. That alone made Daniel shift uncomfortably. As Lucas walked toward the yacht bar, Daniel leaned in just enough to lower his voice. So that's your new man? Impressive. What's he do on the boat? He owns the company that builds them, I said, still not looking directly at him. And no, I don't cook for him. Or clean. And I don't pay half his rent either. His jaw twitched. There it was, the old Daniel peeking through. Arrogant. Petty. Insecure in the worst way. He laughed under his breath and said, must be nice. Bet he doesn't know what you're really like. I finally turned my eyes to him then slowly. You mean honest? Loyal? Independent? You're right, he does know. That's why he's with me. Daniel looked like he wanted to say something else, but his words died somewhere behind his teeth. He looked smaller now, like the world had shrunk around him. And then something happened I didn't expect. Another woman walked up the dock. She was maybe in her mid-30s, tall, fit, blonde, with a toddler on her hip. She looked irritated, sweaty, and tired. Her eyes locked onto Daniel like laser beams. There you are, she snapped. You said you were just grabbing something from the car. That was 20 minutes ago. Daniel flinched. I ran into someone. She gave me a quick glance, eyes scanning me head to toe. Her face said everything: confusion, then realization, then annoyance. Oh! Ex-girlfriend, she asked without waiting for his answer. I smiled. Yep, she huffed. Well, maybe your ex can help you figure out how to pack a diaper bag next time. I'm not your maid. She didn't wait for him to respond, just turned around and started back up the dock. The kid on her hip started to cry, and she muttered, this is exactly what I get for dating another man with potential. Daniel stood there, frozen again. No comeback. No smirk. Just stood. Lucas came back with drinks. He handed me mine, glanced at Daniel, then at the woman walking away. Everything okay? He asked. I nodded, taking a sip. Better than ever. But the story didn't end there. Not even close. About 2 weeks later, Daniel emailed me. The subject line was, closure? I almost deleted it. But curiosity won. The message was long, rambling. He said he'd been doing some deep thinking and realized he'd treated me unfairly. That maybe he had unresolved issues from his childhood, which he'd mentioned before, usually as an excuse. He wanted to meet, just once, to talk. He even tried to appeal to nostalgia, brought up our first road trip, that jazz club, the pizza place in Wicker Park where we used to split garlic knots and laugh for hours. I didn't reply. But I didn't block him either. I should've. I know that now. Because 3 days later, I came home from work and found a manila envelope slid under my apartment door. Inside was a handwritten letter. From Daniel. 6 pages long. It started innocent enough. Apologies, regrets, the usual. But by page 3, the tone changed. He wrote that he'd made a mistake letting me go. That he couldn't stop thinking about me. That he could be better now. That we were meant to finish what we started. Page 5 crossed the line. He said he didn't think Lucas really knew me, and that, eventually, I'd see who the real man was. Page 6? That one was burned into my brain. If I can't have you, I don't think anyone should. That sentence made my stomach drop. I called Lucas. He came over right away. Read the letter silently, his jaw tightening. Then we called the police. They took it seriously. Thank God. I gave them the email, the letter, explained the past. I even pulled up old texts and voicemails I hadn't deleted. The officer taking the report looked at me and said, "You did the right thing. Guys like this don't just get over it." I started locking all my windows. Changed my locks. Bought pepper spray. Lucas insisted I stay at his place for a while, and I agreed. But that wasn't the last we saw of Daniel. And what happened next? Changed everything. A week after the police report, things calmed down. For a moment, it felt like maybe Daniel had finally backed off. I still looked over my shoulder sometimes, checked twice before unlocking my car, but it was manageable. Lucas installed security cameras outside my building. He was calm, supportive, but I could tell it rattled him more than he let on. I appreciated that he didn't treat me like I was being dramatic. He just handled it. Quietly, efficiently, like someone used to cleaning up other people's messes without making it a spectacle. But then my work life got weird. It started with little things. Emails I swore I'd sent never actually went out. A few internal messages from my account that I had no memory of writing. At first, I blamed it on stress. Sleep-deprived mistakes. But then IT flagged my profile for suspicious logins. Someone had been accessing my work email from outside Chicago. From an IP address linked to a VPN. They couldn't track it directly, but they confirmed it wasn't me. I felt the bottom of my stomach fall out. I changed all my passwords, added two-step verification to everything, and sent a company-wide notice that someone had likely spoofed or compromised my account. HR got involved. IT put up more blocks. For a few days, it was chaos. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from my mom. She sounded worried. "Did you mean to send this?" she asked. "Send what?" She forwarded me an email. It was from a fake Gmail address using my name. The message said I was in serious trouble. That I'd been fired from my job, dumped by my fiancé, and needed money. It included a PayPal link. I felt sick. She hadn't sent anything, thank God. But she wasn't the only one. 2 other relatives texted the same day. So did a former colleague. Daniel. It had to be him. He knew how to play mind games. This wasn't just about me now, it was about trying to wreck my reputation, make me look unstable, ruin my support network. He wanted control back. Lucas and I went to the police again. They updated the file, documented the new harassment. But without direct threats, without proof it was Daniel behind the VPN and fake accounts, there wasn't much they could do yet. Lucas offered to hire a private investigator. I told him no at first. It felt extreme. But after the 3rd fake email and a Facebook message to my cousin pretending to be me, I said yes. The PI, his name was Glenn, was ex-military, no nonsense, mid-40s with tired eyes. He listened to everything, took notes, asked specific questions. "Has he ever mentioned having access to any of your old passwords?" "Yeah," I said. "We used to share streaming accounts." I reused one of those passwords. He nodded. "That's how he got in. He's phishing. He doesn't want you back. He wants you to snap." Glenn was quiet, methodical. Within a week, he traced one of the spoof accounts to a coffee shop Wi-Fi network near the apartment where Daniel used to live. Another ping came from a co-working space in River North where Daniel's new startup was based. It was him. But we couldn't prove it enough for legal action. Not yet. Then Glenn found something else. Daniel had been using a burner number to contact other people, some of my old friends. People I hadn't spoken to in years. He was pretending to be an old college friend, digging for personal details, trying to get dirt. He even asked one of them if I'd ever been diagnosed with anything or had a history of breakdowns. He was building a case. A false narrative. Probably hoping to use it later. To discredit me. Maybe for court. Maybe just to mess with me. I felt like I was being hunted. Lucas didn't say much during that time. But one night, I walked into his office at home and saw him staring at the security cam feed on his monitor. Just sitting there, silent, watching the loops. When he noticed me, he just said, "I don't like threats." Neither did I. 2 days later, Glenn called. He slipped. "What do you mean?" "Daniel signed up for a background check service using his real name and email. He tried to run a report on your fiancé. It left a data trail. We had him. We took that to the police, added it to the report. The investigator noted it down. Still, nothing moved quickly. They said they'd monitor things. They told me to stay cautious. File a restraining order if I saw him in person again. But then Glenn told me something else. You ever wonder why he was at that dock in Miami? What? That wasn't a coincidence. Glenn found out Daniel's new girlfriend, the one with the kid, had family in Florida. She had posted pictures on social media a few weeks before our trip. She had tagged the same marina. Glenn suspected Daniel knew we were going. He didn't just bump into us. He planned it. Tracked it. Maybe through my Instagram. Maybe someone told him. But it wasn't chance. That changed everything. I had thought I was just lucky. I had thought the universe gave me that perfect moment on the yacht. But the truth was darker. He was following my life closely enough to be exactly where I'd be, with my new partner, to try and mess with me. And now every coincidence from the past few months felt poisoned. Every email glitch. Every account issue. Every quiet message to someone I knew. Lucas wanted to go to court. I wanted to disappear. But I knew running wouldn't stop this. He wanted power. And the moment I gave in to fear, he'd win. So we made a new plan. But before we could do anything, something else happened. Something that flipped everything upside down again. It all came to a head one Thursday afternoon, quiet, gray skies, rain clinging to the air like sweat. I had just finished a presentation at work when Lucas called me. I'll never forget the way his voice sounded on the phone. Flat, quiet, too calm. "I think you should come home," he said. "Why? What happened?" He paused. "There's someone here who says he wants to talk to you. Says it's urgent." My stomach flipped. "Is it?" "Yeah." I left work without grabbing my things. I don't even remember the drive, just my hands clenching the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I walked into Lucas's condo, Daniel was standing in the entryway, wet from the rain, hands shaking, wild look in his eyes like a man pushed to the edge. Lucas stood nearby, arms crossed, jaw clenched. "You let him in?" I snapped. "I didn't let him in," Lucas said. He slipped past the concierge. "I was about to call the cops." "I just want to talk," Daniel said quickly, eyes darting. "Please. Just a few minutes." I stayed near the door, rain still dripping from my coat. "You've been harassing me. You're lucky I haven't filed a restraining order yet." He didn't deny it. Didn't even blink. Instead, he pulled a crumpled envelope from his coat and dropped it on the counter. "I screwed up," he said. "I lost everything. And I know you hate me, but I didn't know what else to do." Lucas moved to step forward, but I held up a hand. "Talk," I said. "You wanted this. So talk." Daniel ran a hand over his face. "She left me," he muttered. "The girlfriend. Took the kid and left. She said she was tired of feeling like she was raising 2 children. Said I was unstable. She found the burner phone I was using. Saw some of the messages I sent pretending to be you." "Good," I said coldly. He looked up, his face twisted in something that might have been grief. Or guilt. Maybe both. I was jealous. "Okay. I saw you happy, living this perfect life with him." He nodded toward Lucas, and it made me insane. "I thought I could handle it. But watching you move on so fast, so easy. I snapped. "You think this was easy?" "I crawled out of that relationship with my self-worth hanging by threads. You tried to break me. And when you couldn't, you tried to ruin me." Daniel's voice rose, panicked. "I didn't mean for it to get that far. I didn't want to hurt you." "You did hurt me," I interrupted. "And then you tried to hurt the people around me. You tried to wreck my job, my friendships, my relationship. You stalked me across state lines. And you planned that meeting in Miami, didn't you?" Silence. That was the confirmation I didn't need, but knew was coming. Lucas finally stepped in. "You have 30 seconds to leave before I call the police. You can pour your sad little heart out to them." Daniel looked like he wanted to argue, but then his shoulders sagged. His pride had finally bled out. He picked up the envelope again, held it toward me. "I wrote down everything," he said. "Passwords I used. Sites I faked. Messages I sent. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe if I confess, they'll go easier on me." I didn't take the envelope. "You're not doing this to make things right," I said. "You're doing this because you finally hit the wall. Because the world started treating you like you treated me. And now you can't take it." Lucas took the envelope, placed it in a plastic bag. "Thanks for the evidence. Now get the hell out." Daniel didn't say another word. He walked out, shoulders hunched like an old man, rain swallowing him up on the sidewalk. The apartment was silent for a while. Lucas sat down hard on the couch, the tension falling off him in waves. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I'm getting there." The fallout was fast. We turned the envelope over to the police. With Glenn's earlier work and the confession, they finally opened a case. Daniel was charged with cyber-stalking and harassment. His ex gave a statement too. Work cleared up, the IT team released a memo, and HR handled the rest discreetly. My family knew the truth now, and I got a lot of awkward, "I'm so sorry I ever believed that" email messages. But the real aftermath was internal. I wasn't sleeping much. Kept waking up expecting shadows to move. I'd stare at the ceiling and think about all the signs I missed, all the times I gave him the benefit of the doubt. The shame settled deep, quiet, and cold. Lucas was patient, but I could feel a small space growing between us. Not because of anything he did, but because part of me was afraid. Afraid of letting someone that close again. Of being blindsided. Of missing the cracks. We had one major argument, just one, but it cut deep. He said, "You need to let me in. I'm not him." And I said, "I know. But you weren't there. You don't know what it's like to be constantly questioning your own worth." That shut us both up for a while. Eventually, we talked it out. Therapy helped. Both for me and for us. We started over, not from scratch, but from honesty. He showed up. Every day. In quiet ways. And me? I got stronger. Not louder. Not harder. Just steadier. One afternoon, I sat by the lake with a sketch pad, drawing for the first time in months. A stranger asked if I was an artist. I said, "Not yet." That's when I realized I wasn't living in fear anymore. I had survived the worst version of love. And I had made it out more whole than I thought possible. Do I regret it? Not anymore. I needed to see who he really was to understand who I really am. Some wounds leave scars. But scars mean healing. And now? I'm not afraid of the past catching up to me. Because I'm already way ahead of it.